On this episode, we give some history on Thai politics and discuss how far expats should wade into those waters.
So if you're wondering how closely, or even if you should follow the upcoming election, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand with only the clothes on my back and $10 million in the bank, and I'm now living in a small condo and running on the 9-to-5 rat race. But that's showbiz for you, baby.
Yeah, that's the way it works, apparently. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a 1-year teaching contract more than 22 years ago. Fell in love with Thai ghost stories, and I'm still learning more and more and more, so I never left. I'm still here, man.
Yeah, well, you told me to watch Joe Cummings' trailer for his new movie where he plays a priest, and it's a Krasu movie, which looks scary as hell.
That's right. Inhuman Kiss 2.
Inhuman Kiss.
I'm telling you, man, the preview looks good. But there's an endless number of Thai ghost stories, which I have learned, and we've talked about it on the podcast before. I'm sure we'll revisit the issue, but it's like a treasure trove of cool stories.
So creative.
For sure.
Also, Inhuman Kiss sounds like a great name for a bar in Cowboy.
Inhuman Kiss. All right. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the British versus American spelling of a few choice words that are confusing us this week, Greg's lopsided results from his trip to the eye laser surgery clinic, and another tale of my adventure with the maddening Thai bureaucracy. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
You do have pretty bad luck with
no bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is my nemesis, nemesi, whatever the right version is.
All right. As always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the right to leave us a voicemail that we will play on the show. All right, well, in this episode, we take a cue from a big, important announcement that was made recently. Thailand is having itself one of them election things in a few months. Now, Ed and I have been here for a combined 43-ish years, so we've had our ups and downs with Thai politics, which are notoriously, shall we say, unpredictable. But as happens every time an election comes around, we start to ask ourselves, will this time be different? And more importantly, should I even care? Now, obviously, you should know at least the basics of the politics of the country you live in, but there's also a lot to be said for only knowing the basics. In doing a bit of reading for the show, I kept coming across the phrase, should you choose depth or should you choose breadth? So without coming down on any one particular side, we are going to give a quick overview of the political landscape in Thailand, how we got where we are, and how much we should know as we go forward into a bright new future with a bright new election. So Ed, this is really your sphere of expertise. You're a poli-sci guy. You know a lot about this stuff. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you're right to some extent. I do teach political science, and I feel that I should know about Thai politics, but I did resist it for many years. I've mentioned this before on the podcast that I didn't want to be one of those foreigners who shows up here and a month later I'm lecturing Thai people about their political system. So, right. So I really resisted it for a long time. But honestly, by 2012, 2013, that whole round of protests, then the coup in 2014, by that time, I kind of snapped. By that time I'd been here 14 years and I was like, I'm now allowed to comment on this stuff. So
at this point, I feel I can say something.
Yeah. So I kind of turned a corner. And I'm definitely not. Just before the show, you and I were talking about how we barely can keep up with all the new political parties and who the candidates are. So I'm far from an expert in the current scene. But I do now try to follow it and feel like, as someone who teaches political science, even though my expertise is American politics, I feel like I should know what's going on in Thai politics. And I use it as a point of comparison in my classes. So I don't teach Thai politics, but I will, teach some American thing and then talk about Switzerland and then talk about Singapore. But then if something's happening in Thailand, I want to be able to say, because I'm teaching Thai students, so I want to be able to put Thailand in perspective relative to other countries. So my game has gotten better over time, but expert, I am not.
It's funny because, I used to get really wrapped up in Thai politics. Like in my early days here, I was young and naive and very green. And I used to sort of, I knew that I couldn't vote. I knew that ultimately it didn't really, affect my day-to-day goings on. But, it used to really upset me. I used to get really upset when someone I liked did something bad, or someone bad did something good, or vice versa. And I got really stressed out about it. And I've said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I think it's one of the most Buddhist things I've ever done, is just sort of one day I decided not to care. And that's not to say that I stopped caring about the outcomes. Of course, I wish for the best for the country, and I hope that everyone wins, and I want the best for everyone. But I just decided that I can't get so involved. Otherwise, it's just stressing me out, and I was freaking out. So now I just look at it as sort of like, okay, that's an interesting development, but okay.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. In a way, maybe our situations are almost reversed, because I didn't want to get involved early, but now I feel, after being here longer, I feel like I should know what's going on, and I feel like I kind of have the right to voice my opinion, even though I know Thai people are not really that interested in hearing my opinion about Thai politics. But, my idea of this show, for listeners out there, if you're wondering what the heck's going on, I figured that, Greg and I sometimes forget how long we've been here. And we realized that, we realized that if you're a listener who's basically new to Thailand, or if you're a Thai file, but if you're post 2014, 2015, you might not understand what the heck's going on in Thai politics. You might not understand the roots, the background. You don't know what Greg and I know. Like, we've been here since the early noughts. And so I figured this show is kind of a primer on the background of how we got to where we are in Thai politics. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah, that's a very good point, is that we've been here 21, 22, 23 years. And for us, a lot of the major events in, quote, what we think is recent Thai history, like you said, something interesting about your students, it ain't recent Thai history for a lot of adults.
Yeah, it's funny. For you and I, we can talk about red shirts and yellow shirts, but my students who are 18 and 19-year-old Thais, they're like, what the hell's a red shirt and yellow shirt? They know it, but they're like, why are you talking about that?
Yeah, right.
And for you and I, we're like, we think of Thai politics in terms of red shirts and yellow shirts, but that's actually 7-8 years. That's old hat. That's not current what's going on. But my point is going to be that the red shirt, yellow shirt thing ain't over yet. So let me just begin my spiel. I'm not going to lecture, I promise. I'll be quick. I'll try to be efficient. But here's the key. The 1997 economic crisis was a major crisis in Thailand, massive bankruptcies, huge economic crisis. And Thailand had to turn to the IMF and the World Bank to borrow money to rescue Thailand from a potential literal government collapse. Now, I forget the numbers. Right. I think they got approved for something like $18 billion in loans. I think they ended up getting maybe 12 billion in loans, but these are loans that you have to pay back. And right at this time, there was a new voice in Thai politics, and the new voice was a Thai businessman named Thaksin Shinawatra. And again, for old hats like Greg and I, for old people, you're like, yeah, we know. But this podcast episode is not for you, Mr. Know-it-all. Okay.
We also forget too that the most expats here, they sort of age out after 5 or 6 years.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, I mean, like, it's 2023 now. So if you're a post 2014 expat or listener, you might not know the Thaksin story. So I'm here to tell you the Thaksin story because I lived through it. And the basic
That we should
idea-
also note that the IMF is the International Monetary Fund, not the Impossible Mission Force, which of course sends Tom Cruise all over the world fighting bad guys.
Thank you, Greg, for that.
You're welcome.
Pop
That's
culture
what I'm here for.
clarification. Anyway, so when I got here in 2000, Thaksin was this rising force in Thai politics, and basically he was a very successful Thai businessman who, in the early 90s, had started a cell phone company called AIS, and then also a Shin Corp, which put satellites up. And so basically he was kind of a neo or a nouveau riche Thai billionaire. And his kind of approach in Thai politics was, his initial appeal was that he was this crazy successful businessman. In a way, he was kind of, at that time, he was seen as kind of the Bill Gates of Thailand, or a Mark Zuckerberg. He was seen as this wildly successful technology entrepreneur. That was like who Thaksin was in 2000, 2001. And,
Right.
and he basically appealed to a lot of people as a businessman because he basically said, I will pay back the IMF on time. And also because he was so wealthy, you know, corruption has been a problem in Thai politics forever. And a lot of people thought, hey, like this guy's already a billionaire. Like there's no need for him to be corrupt. Like this was something I've heard from many people who were early supporters of Thaksin. They were like, okay, this guy is not a wannabe. Like he's a billionaire, so we don't have to worry about him like making quote unquote millions from being prime minister. Right. Like
we hear that in other countries right now too, all over the world. It's not only Thailand.
And he won the election in 2000 and was basically very popular in 2001, 2002. Now, there were controversies. So he was involved in various human rights controversies. When I was here back in the day, I was not a huge fan for different reasons, which don't matter right now. But then he got reelected in 2004 in not a close election. So now he's actually the first Thai prime minister to be elected twice in a row. So at that time, it appeared that Thailand was on this road to true democracy, because everyone knows that Thailand is stuck in kind of a vicious cycle of coups and military intervention, and short periods of democracy. And back then, I can just tell you, in 2005, the kind of smart take on Thailand was, wow, the cycle is broken. We've had two elections in a row. We have a democratic elected prime minister who's popular. We're on this road to real democracy. That was the take in 2005.
I remember seeing Thaksin on the cover of Time magazine when I was new to Thailand.
Correct.
Thinking like, all right, this guy's a serious player. Like he's getting international attention.
Yeah, and there is a whole serious debate about Thaksin and whether he was good or bad, and we're just going to avoid that. I'm just trying to give you the background for you newbies, as in people who are like in the last 8 years. So you newbies,
God, I'm old.
You newbies who are new to Thailand in the last 8 years. And this is a complicated story, but essentially Thailand has what I'll just call, to be safe, I will call a conservative establishment. And that's a whole nother topic of who makes up the conservative establishment. But essentially there's a conservative establishment of people who are kind of used to running the country from Bangkok. And to make a long story short, Thaksin became unpopular with this conservative establishment. So he upset some important people, some powerful people, even though he had been elected. He ran the country like a CEO, like a boss. I don't think it's totally wrong to kind of call Thaksin an elected dictator. In other words, he was democratically elected, but the way he saw democracy is, once he won the election, he's the boss. Like he runs the show. So he was not really into coalition building or consensus building or listening to other people. Like he was a former CEO of a major corporation, and he even openly called Thailand Incorporated. He talked about the CEO governing style. And
you elected me to lead, let me lead.
I'm the boss now. And that style upset a lot of people. He stepped on a lot of toes. I've always said many times that if Thaksin had the political skills of Bill Clinton, then the coup would not have happened. Like,
oh, interesting.
I think Bill Clinton, a true politician, he would have known who's back to slap and whose ass to kiss, and he would have talked much more diplomatically and politely.
Would have gone on Arsenio and played a saxophone. Once again, I'm dating myself. I'm way over the head of any newbies.
The thing about Thaksin is, and I'm not taking a pro-con position on him, but he's definitely a leader. But I don't think of him as a politician. Like, politics is about pleasing various people and understanding power, and politics is about kissing ass, and it's a game. And I think Thaksin he's a businessman. And he even said this himself. Like I said, he called his governing style the CEO style. And the problem is that's not really how democracy is supposed to work. So long story short, he pissed off powerful people, and he was overthrown in a coup in 2006, which, like, Greg and I have talked about many times, how shocking it was for us, being Westerners living through a coup or whatever. But this led to a period of turmoil where the military took over, and then there was a partially elected government. And this whole coup in 2006 set off the modern era in Thai politics. And essentially, it's complicated, but I'm here to simplify things for you. And essentially, you have one faction, which you can call the red shirt faction. The way Thaksin got elected was by appealing to the political priorities of rural Thailand. So his whole strategy was, Bangkok's big, there's a lot of people here, but there's more people in the countryside, especially in the Northeast. So his whole red shirt strategy was, I'm going to give stuff to farmers and the Thai poor. I'm going to be the Thai prime minister for the poor. I'm not going to be the prime minister for Bangkok. And it worked. It got him elected in 2000 and reelected in 2004. But like I said, he stepped on toes. He pissed off the wrong people, and he got overthrown. And there's a lot of details from 2007, 2008, 2010. But the long story short is, eventually, his sister got elected and became prime minister. So his sister's name is Yingluck, and she basically continued the Thaksin Shinawatra proposals. So this essentially, the Shinawatras became a dynasty in Thailand, like a family that represented, a faction, which I'm just going to call the red shirts, even though that's not the current lingo. They're just a faction that allegedly, whatever, they claim to represent rural Thailand. And this essentially, this has set off an epic political struggle between more Bangkok-based, middle-class and above Thais who in the past were represented by the Democratic Party and may now be represented by various military parties. But essentially now, Thai politics is stuck in almost a geographic, I think this is a simplification, but it's stuck in almost a geographic battle where you have Bangkok-based Thais, middle class and above, because a lot of poorer Thais who live in Bangkok actually are from the countryside. So that's why I say middle class and above, because if you talk to a taxi driver, they're rarely born in Bangkok. They're born in Isaan or they're born in the Northeast. So you have essentially a class-based political struggle going on. Now, whether or not Thaksin actually represents the poor or not, that's a different topic, but that's what they claim to represent.
Yeah. So that coup and his election, I guess, Thaksin himself was like a giant rock being thrown into the middle of a pond, and those ripples are still bouncing around today.
That's right. And now this entire episode would not be necessary except for the fact that now his daughter is the leading candidate in the upcoming election. So that's why we're having this episode. So essentially what happened is his sister was elected prime minister, and then she was overthrown in a coup in 2014.
Coup number 2.
That's right.
You and me.
So so Greg and I have lived through 2 coups. And essentially we get a military government since then and a semi-democratic election. So the military took over in a genuine coup and then won, in quotes, a subsequent election. And
which again, we're not going to get too deeply into.
Right. But I think the current situation shows that none of the original problems have actually been solved. So this is, when I teach this stuff to my students and I try to explain why I think coups are a bad idea is, I tell my students, I don't think they actually solve problems. It's like, you're, the military, because they have tanks, they can take over the government. Like the U.S. military, they could take over the government anytime they wanted. It's like the Canadian military, they have tanks. Like they've got jet fighters. Like like no one can stop them, right?
Wait, what about the guys who have the AR-16 in the cabins out in the woods?
Oh yeah, okay, those guys are badasses. Those guys are badasses. But I just say like like these coups, they just put off problems, and so I think and recently, post 2014, there's been apparently other players on the scene. So a lot of people thought, okay, so in short, the red shirts were the Shinawatra rural clan, and the yellow shirts was the term for the Bangkok-based middle and upper middle class, like clan, like this kind of class war. And the bottom line is, post 2014, a lot of people thought, okay, that era is over. The era of red shirts and yellow shirts is over. Now we've got new players. We've got the Move Forward Party. We've got these other parties. But the bottom line is, it seems like, and we'll see what happens, it's kind of same old, because now in the last year, it turns out that the leader of the Pheu Thai party, which is the inheritors of the Thaksin legacy, is now his daughter, Patong Tarn. And I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, so I'm not going to repeat it. But essentially, you now have the original super businessman, then his sister, and now his daughter is leading the polls. Again, well, it's the election is probably 6 weeks away. I don't know what's going to happen, but apparently this whole cycle is not over. Like, so we haven't moved past it. And it's funny because my students, they talk about red shirts and yellow shirts. Like, yeah, that's so yesterday. Like, dude, get up to date. And but apparently we're still stuck in this. And I'm not a big fan of dynasties. Like, I don't know anything about Patong Tarn. Like, I'm not criticizing her. But it's just like in the U.S. where, you have George H.W. Bush and then George W. Bush and then his brother Jeb is running for president. I'm like, the U.S. is pretty big. Like, we can't find someone from another family. And even though I'm like liberal Democrat, I feel the same way about like Bill and Hillary. Like, I like them both. Like, I'm liberal Democrat. But do we really need like husband and wife?
But come on.
Like,
we need some new ideas.
I mean, can't we come up with someone from another family? We've got 300 million people.
Right. Well, even in Canada, we have Justin Trudeau. His father was prime minister. However, that was 30.
Right. No, but it's the same thing. So. But it's just part of politics, and politics does run in families. It's kind of a family business.
Well, that was a great summary. That was a very succinct, up to date, bringing us up to date for where we are right now and what to expect next. But I do want to read something here, which I thought was really, really interesting. Now, let me read this. One paragraph here from a story, and the story spends a few paragraphs sort of setting the stage for this civilization, this society, this culture that had existed in this sort of like this status quo for a very, very long time. And then it says, into this environment stepped a powerful new politician, scion of a wealthy family who championed populist causes as a way to reach the top of the political ladder. He was a charismatic leader who should have been a strident defender of the privileges of the old order, but instead used his political skill to blow these orders up. Because of this betrayal, the conservative politicians hated him. They could see their way of life slipping away and were trying desperately to stem the tide of reform. And here was this enormously talented politician who ought to be helping them, not helping them, and instead making things even worse. And not only that, he seemed to enjoy watching them squirm, so they were eternally vigilant for the moment that they could turn the tables and watch him squirm for a change. Now, that to me, roughly, pretty much parallels the situation with Thaksin.
I agree, but I think I know who you're talking about.
That actually is from one of my all-time favorite podcasts, The History of Rome by Mike Duncan, and he wrote that about Julius Caesar.
For sure. I mean, this is why Thaksin is the definer of the modern age in Thai politics. Like, and again, I know there's listeners out there. I know there's Thai listeners who are going, no. But the simple truth is, Thaksin. We live in the Thaksin age. Like the fact that his daughter now is the leading candidate shows that we are still in the Thaksin age, whether you like it or not.
It's so interesting to me that this stuff is it's been happening for thousands of years, and
For
it
sure.
goes on to talk about Julius Caesar's land reforms and grain doles, which
That's right.
Thaksin's sister was very famous for. It's just the same stories.
That's right. No, I mean this is why political science is a science. This is what I tell my students. Like you and I like hate when Thai people say like, oh, foreigners, you can't understand Thailand. Like Farang, Mai Khao Chai. Like it drives me crazy because like why is political science a science? It's because it's the same shit. Like whether it's ancient Rome or Thai, it's the same thing. And Thaksin is a very wealthy man who claims to be a champion of the poor. And you either buy it or you don't. And again, that's another topic. And I have my opinion. So in this episode, we're going to be totally neutral on who to believe or not believe. But that is the frame of Thai politics. And the interesting thing is since the 2014 coup, I thought there was another player, so the Move Forward party. I thought, okay, now we've moved past the red shirt and yellow shirt thing, because this is a Bangkok-based party that claims to be progressive. But now they're actually losing to the Pheu Thai party represented by Thaksin Shinawatra, at least right now. So we'll see what happens in the actual election. I'm not making any predictions. I'm just talking about the current polls. So I think you can't...
Politics is a dirty game, man.
I just don't think you can understand what's going on right now if you don't understand Thaksin and Yingluck and the red shirts and yellow shirts. And we were there, man. We lived through it.
I was there, Gandalf, 2,000 years ago.
That's right.
What's that old saying? Don't tell my mother I'm in politics. She thinks I play piano in a whorehouse.
I'm not sure I've ever heard that, Greg, but
it's a great one.
I'm glad to add that to my repertoire.
Well, what's interesting now is that we're going into this election, and I'm a little bit ashamed to say that, on one hand, I'm ashamed to say that I don't really know a lot about what's going on. I can't name I can name a couple of the political parties, but not all of them. I probably couldn't tell you what any of them stand for or what policies they've outlined. But that's the one question I wanted to ask you, and it's an interesting question for, I think, a lot of people who live here. I think having a general knowledge of what's happening politically is necessary, because you need to understand what's going on, what's happening, and where you sit among those things. But how deep do you think you should know? Like, how deep should I dive into this pool of Thai politics as a foreigner who can't vote, who lives in my little daily Farang bubble, which is affected probably not very deeply by whatever happens out there? Echoing our former guest on the show last week, Yuangrat, who said that when she talks to a lot of Thai people, they don't really care who's in charge as long as they get their rice, their farm, their money, their family safe, And again, I don't think that's a Thai-specific thing, but how deeply should expats here dive into politics? What should be expected of us?
Well, I think it's a fair question. I think there's a couple guidelines. One thing is, you don't want to be the newbie who claims to be an expert and starts lecturing Thais about their world. Like, you don't want to be that guy. So I think...
Or anything.
Yeah. So I think if you're relatively new, you want to be quiet and listen and learn. But I think in the long run, I think foreigners should embrace Thai politics. And I know a lot of them don't, and I understand it. I get it. Even though we've lived here a long time, Thai people don't really want to see Farangs participating. But the bottom line is, you might end up a Thai citizen. I might end up a Thai citizen. And at that point, we can vote. And I don't know. It's like, one thing that frustrates me about Thailand is, the difference between what Thailand is supposed to be on paper and what it really is. And I'm all for pushing that. If on paper Thailand is supposed to have free speech, then I'm going to talk about Thai politics. After I've paid my dues. You know what I mean? So,
right.
It's like if you're going to say, okay, hey, no, we have freedom of speech. We believe, and that's in the Thai Constitution, freedom of speech. So then I'm like, okay, you said I have freedom of speech, and I'm legally here. Then you're going to hear what I have to say about Thai politics. So I really think that
good idea in theory.
No. What I'm saying is that I want to hold Thai people to their claimed principles. Like, it might not really be their principles, but if they're going to claim that they have free speech, then I'm going to use that. Now, but you're right. I think that for most foreigners, there's not much to gain by like getting involved. But it's not so much getting involved. It's not about going out and being an activist. It's just about understanding the society you live in. And to me, it just makes life here more rich, more interesting, because to me, it has some parallels to American politics, but it's, on the other hand, it's totally different. So for me, as someone who studies politics, that's what I find fascinating. So there's certain things, like you said, where it's like, oh shit, this is just like ancient Rome. Mm-hmm. But then there's other things where you're like, well, wait a minute, this is just uniquely Thai. So I like that. So for me, I want to get into a little bit more, because I want to see what is, oh shit, this is just politics. This is just human beings either being shitty or being good. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with Thailand. But then other things seem to be uniquely Thai. So I get off on that. So, maybe I'm an exception because it's my field. But I think it's kind of like a merit badge. Like, the longer you've been here, the more you need to start learning the names of politicians. It's just like the names. It's a good
rule of thumb. Yeah,
it's just like the names of pop stars. It's like you got to know. It's like, and I'm bad on Thai pop stars, but I regret it. It's like, I feel like you should know the names of these people, like Bird and all these like pop stars that every Thai person knows. These pop stars. So if you've been here,
let me ask you this: who do you prefer, Millie or Lisa Blackpink?
Well, you know the answer. I'm like, I'm all about Lisa for cuteness, but I'm all about Millie for personality. I'm down. Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's like I think this is part of living here longer. Just act like you belong here and have a full view. Like, get out of your expat bubble. Like, you and I have talked about this many times. Like, it improves your life here. It's too easy for long-term expats to live.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
To live in the expat bubble. Like, you're fooling yourself. Like, just open up your eyes and become a member of Thai society. We are here legally, and so we have the we have the right to belong and participate according to the law. Like, right now, neither you and I can vote. Like, neither you are citizens, so we can't vote. But we're allowed to voice our opinion, and I just think you should be smart about it and be polite and not act like an ass. But I hate when foreigners say, "Oh, it's not our business." I'm like, what are you talking about? We live here. Like, we pay taxes. Like, what do you mean? It's literally our business. I mean,
if that doesn't give you the right to vote, it at least gives you the right to
of course, be interested. Of course. I hate when foreigners say, "Oh, like, this Thai politics is not our business." I'm like, what? It's like, we live here. We live here. Like, it is our business. It's literally our business.
I don't disagree, but I do agree a lot. But I also think that it comes down to a balance. Like, there is a lot to be said, I think, about ignorance is bliss, and maybe ignorance is the wrong word. But like I said earlier, I used to get really wrapped up and stressed out about this stuff, and no matter how stressed out I got, I couldn't change anything because I'm a foreigner and I can't vote. So I sort of swung the other way, where, almost towards apathy, where I was just like, I don't care. But I don't think that's right either, even though it's very easy to do that. I think you got to have a balance. Like, you don't want to get too wrapped up in it where it becomes like all consuming, but at the same time, it's like you said, it's sort of our duty, our civic duty.
Well, no, I agree.
To really understand what's going on.
I agree with what you're saying. I've been there. This is my world. But I think the same thing would just be said if I was back in the States. I would feel the same way. Like, if I got, because I'm passionate about this, and then I just have one vote. Who's going to listen to me? It makes no difference. So it's very easy to get apathetic. Like, if you're back in Canada, it'd be the same way. What's the point?
What's the point, man?
Right. So being an expat, I don't think is really the issue. And I want to say this. This is a kind of random shout out, but back in the day, we had a Thai parliamentarian, Taupi Pope, on the podcast. And he's famous for being the beer guy, the craft beer guy. We got to get him back on the show. But I was fascinated when I did that interview and I was chatting with him, because it turns out he was the member of parliament who represented my neighborhood where I lived. Now, I've subsequently moved neighborhoods, right? But I was chatting with him, and I remember like Tao saying to me, "I represent you. It doesn't matter that you're a foreigner. You live in my district. I represent you." And I was just like, wow, like, that is so cool. Like, he was the first Thai person who acted like politically I matter. Like he was just saying, yeah, you're here illegally. You live in my district. What are you worried about? Like, it's like he was basically saying, like, yeah, I represent you. Like, well, what are your concerns? And
that's nice to hear.
And that's how it should be. Like, I'm here legally. Like, I'm not like you and I. We're not when you're an expat, you're not a ghost. Like, we are not ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're white, okay, but we're not ghosts. You know what I mean? It's like we don't disappear. We don't blend. We don't blend into the background. You know what I mean? It's like I think this is a problem as an expat. It's like we act like ghosts among Thais, and then we come alive among expats. But that's not right. You know, and it's like I love hearing my students' opinions about the U.S. And you know, new immigrants in the U.S. who come to the U.S. from other countries, I would love to hear what they have to say. I remember, I mean, this is totally random, but I have a friend in the U.S. who I was under the impression she was totally American, and she is totally American, but it turns out she actually was a Russian immigrant who came when she was young. I didn't know that until like later. But when I went to her wedding, like I met all these Russians like at her wedding, and I remember her I met a bunch of these Russian immigrants, and it's like they were the happiest Americans I ever met. You know, it's like they, and it was fascinating, you know, and so getting immigrant perspectives is totally worthwhile. So like I think Thai people, they should want to hear what we have to say, and we have the right to say it, you know. So I'm basically pro learning about Thai politics and participating to the extent we're allowed to by law. You know, and
I'm down with that.
And just not being a jerk, which is the general rule in life, is don't be a dick about it. You know, that's the general rule. Yeah. So I'm a believer in participating.
The official slogan of the Bangkok podcast.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. That's right. That's our philosophy.
Right. Nice one. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as just something we have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. The last time Ed asked me what I thought about chilies and vinegar on dining tables. So this week, I'm going to ask Ed something.
All right, let's do this.
Now, Ed, you're a consumer, you're a shopper, you're a spender of money, you go into places and buy stuff.
Heck yeah.
What is your thoughts on when you walk into a store and you want to ask a question and the shopkeepers are there, usually two women, and one of them is like looking at the other one's hair or picking out one of her ear hairs or looking at her skin, like they're just sort of sitting on the floor, not paying attention, grooming each other usually. Have you seen this?
Well, okay. So to me, obviously you can't love that. But this is just larger problem. And it's funny. I honestly believe I was thinking about this today. Where was I? Might have been when I went to lunch. I can't remember. But it's this problem. Like I think of it as a problem of like training and professionalism, where Thai people almost always, like there's just rare exceptions, they almost always approach everything with like a good heart and like charm and like a willingness to help, but then in other circumstances they're just not professional, or they're not focused on the task at hand, or they're like too casual.
Yeah, I could see how someone might find this like sort of charmingly aloof, like, oh, that's cute, they're so close, they're helping each other out, they're friends, but
to me this is the, I don't know what to call it. I mean, it can be charming. I mean, it is. It's like Thai people are charming. They're nice. They're sweet. They're kind.
But I think you nailed on the right word. It's just unprofessional.
Yes. Yeah, this is the thing. And again, I swear to God, I was thinking about this today. I can't remember exactly what was the exact situation where it's just it's the limit. It's kind of the limitations of being good-hearted. Like I think it's like I just think in Thai culture there's just a lot of credit given to like being good-hearted, which is important. But honestly, like I'm here to tell you, I guess I'm going to be that guy. Like being good-hearted is not everything. Like it's not literally everything. Like you actually have to be professional and know stuff. If you ask me, what grade would you give customer service in Thailand in general? Like I would give it like a C+.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like it's not horrible. It's not horrible, but this is not like, again, to me, it's professionalism and training. So it's not, I mean, occasionally you do encounter rudeness. Like it does happen occasionally.
Very rarely.
Yeah, it's just not a common thing. But you just
I'm reminded every time I go into 7-Eleven and see the clerk counting the change really slowly. And I'm like, dude, if I worked in retail, if I counted change that slowly at the end of my first week, I would have been booted straight out the door.
That's right. Okay, now I remember. Okay, shit, that was it. You totally shook my memory. So this morning, I got to go across the river on the boat, and I got to catch the ferry, and I'm getting a coffee at the shop, and I'm looking at the ferry because I'm like, of course, going to be late to class, and the ferries come over like synchronized, like a certain thing. Right. I order my coffee, and like the girl behind the counter, she's reorganizing something, and I'm standing there, like I'm a customer, but she's busy
reorganizing glasses. You're like, yo, the ferry's here.
I'm just like, I'm thinking, okay, that I got about 20 seconds, and I'm trying to get her attention. I'm like, Kato Nakap, it's like, I want this. And she looks up and she kind of like gives me the, wait 1 second. Like I'm organizing these glasses. And I'm like, I'm the customer. Like
glasses are still going to be there when I'm not.
That's right. Like in the States, immediately, like the staff person would have been dealing with the customer and very efficiently and ended up missing that ferry and had to take the next one. And then I was about 5 minutes late to class, and I blame her.
Well, at least you got some good coffee.
That's right. I did get some good coffee in the end. But yeah, no, this is the exact thing. It's like she was sweet and smiling, but she was like, oh, hold on, like I'm busy. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean you're busy? You're busy doing what? I'm the only customer at the shop. Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna live with maybe bordering on loath, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, like
I mean the sweetness, they're nice, but whatever. It's not professional.
I'll give them some leeway, but come on.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website and connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we will feature on the show. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but you can find me on Mastodon at bkkgreg@home.social. So thank you for listening, folks, and we will see you back here next week.
For sure.
Just got a message from our buddy David who asked, "Hey, how come you don't put the little bonus tags at the end after the music anymore?" So, David, this is for you. The short answer is sometimes you just don't have anything funny or worthwhile to add.